Hello and welcome to Wrong Place, Wrong Crime, Episode 7. In the first 6 episodes of this season, we've gone back and we've looked at everyone involved in the Yogurt Shop murders. We know our victims, Jennifer and Sarah Harbison, Eliza Thomas, and Amy Ayers. We know our witnesses, and now we know our main suspect, Kenneth Allen McDuff. Again, I want to remind everyone, as I talked about it in episode 1, there are parents that lost their 4 daughters. And so as we go through how I believe this crime happened, let's remember there are grieving parents that lost their daughters 30 years ago. In this episode, I will recreate how I believe Kenneth Allen McDuff and an unknown accomplice carried out the murder of the 4 young girls and shattered the innocence of one Texas town. This is a theory using a pattern of behavior, an MO as some people call it, for McDuff and other crimes he had committed or he would commit with similarities to the Yogurt Shop murders. I believe in lawyer terms, this is a circumstantial case or theory of the crime. Let's start with how did McDuff know about the Yogurt Shop? Or how did he find the Yogurt Shop on December the 6th? Was this just a randomly picked location? Or had McDuff been there previously? Now we know McDuff, up until November, drove around an old pickup truck. He returned that pickup truck to his father with the cracked windshield in November. Now, he had driven that pickup truck all around Central Texas area. And then he began driving there in mid-November to late November. He began driving the 10 Ford Thunderbird. What most people don't know is when law enforcement checked the truck for evidence on March the 20th, 1992, they found a map. McDuff had left in the truck. It was a city map of Austin. And when the officer unfolded it, a line was drawn on a destination near the corner of Anderson Lane and Mopac. Remember, the Yogurt Shop was located on the corner of Anderson Lane and Mopac. McDuff, I believe, had been to the Yogurt Shop sometime before November in the pickup truck. He made a note in his mind and on that map about this location, probably noting that it had females closing a store late. Just like the mental note he made of Melissa Northrup working the graveyard shift at the convenience store. Everyone makes the mistake of thinking someone cased the Yogurt Shop the day before or the night of. I don't believe that's correct. I think McDuff cased the store and saw its closing situation, I believe, months before. So it's early December, Friday night, December the 6th, and McDuff and a cohort or partner are traveling to Austin for one of his, what he called, sexcapades. He scores his drugs early in the night. Maybe he visited North Cross Mall for a possible victim. He has no luck there, but he knows about a place he had labeled on a map earlier on Anderson Lane. Now McDuff is again in his Ford Thunderbird, a car capable of, in McDuff's mind, of carrying himself, his partner, and maybe 2 kidnapped females at the most, one in the back seat and one possibly in the trunk. McDuff heads to the Yogurt Shop, knowing there will be 2 possible young girls closing the Yogurt Shop that night that he could kidnap and kill. So, like in his previous and future murders, he was planning on taking 1 or 2 of the girls, throwing them in the car, and heading north to carry out his despicable evil. McDuff would later say, in one of the most sickening statements I've ever heard, "You can only bury 2 bodies. Digging 3 or more graves is too much work and too much time." McDuff would also use a partner when he knew he was planning on kidnapping a woman. Look at the examples. Jodell Green, Alva Hank Worley. McDuff always wanted to have a numbers advantage. McDuff and his partner arrive at the yogurt shop sometime around 10:30 p.m. Close enough to closing time. They enter the yogurt shop and proceed to sit in the last booth by the register. Being quiet, but foreboding, they don't order anything. They just simply sit at the table. And at 10:42, they are noticed by Tim Stryker and Margaret Sheehan wearing their coats and sitting in the booth. Again, with no yogurt or no items. Stryker and Sheehan later can't make a positive ID, and they leave the store at 10:47. McDuff has been provided or somehow obtained a .22 caliber while his partner is carrying a .380. Eliza and Jennifer clean and close the store for the next 10 minutes. All the tables are cleaned and the chairs are put up. The front door's been locked. All the tables have been cleaned, of course, except the one McDuff and his partner are sitting in, the last booth by the register. McDuff and his partner make their move a little after 11 p.m. McDuff goes toward the register and pulls his gun on Eliza. At 11:03, he orders her to open the register. And at that very moment, Sarah and Amy come out of the back from cleaning the dishes, expecting Jennifer and Eliza to be almost finished at the front of the store. McDuff is upset that there are not 2 girls, but now there's 4. They don't have enough room in the car for 4 girls. And what he has planned to do, he will now have to do in the back of the store. He can't leave any witnesses that he was there at the store, either to rob it or to do whatever he was going to do. So McDuff now has to change his plans. McDuff, expecting to kidnap the girls in his car, will now change his plans. All 4 girls are taken to the back and forced to disrobe. They stack their clothes up neatly in the corner by the back door. McDuff, as in his other crimes, uses the girls' clothes as ligatures to tie the girls up and control them. Being the sexual deviant that he is, he takes pleasure in the next 40 minutes, getting happiness from the pain and the fright of the girls. McDuff, at close to 11:40 p.m., walks over and shoots each girl in the head and begins to stack their bodies. Suddenly, Amy begins to crawl towards the front of the store. McDuff's unknown partner then walks over and kills Amy with the .380 he's carrying. McDuff, as we have seen, will not leave any evidence behind, as he knows the danger of leaving evidence will get him caught. McDuff takes his cigarette lighter, stacks plastic and paper cups on the girls' bodies, and then begins a fire on the storage shelves beside the girls' bodies. The 2 men then stand at the back door for just a couple of seconds to make sure the fire is raging. McDuff and his partner slip out the back door and into his Ford Thunderbird in the back alley, and suddenly they're north on Mopac, heading back to Waco. That is my theory on how Kenneth McDuff carried out the yogurt shop murders. I think it's a pretty sound theory, and I think there's 5 things as I went through that theory that we later saw in his other crimes and things that law enforcement found that can link Kenneth McDuff to the yogurt shop murders. Now know that, again, he was smart enough not to leave any hard evidence. And probably the only way this crime will ever be solved will be through DNA. But the 5 things that circumstantial evidence that could show that McDuff possibly was there that night are as follows. Number 1, the map in the truck. I think the map in the truck is a huge piece of circumstantial evidence. it shows that McDuff at some point when he was driving that truck around in the Austin area had driven on Anderson Lane in the Mopac area and around Anderson. He had it marked on the map for some reason. Now, does that mean he went into the yogurt shop? No, it doesn't mean that, but it does mean that he was in the area and had been in the area. Point number 2, the ligatures. I think this is probably one of the most important points that shows Kenneth McDuff in all of his crimes never brought ligature. Even though he knew he was going to kidnap and kill someone, he never brought his own ligatures. Not in the Colleen Reed case, not in Melissa Northrup, not in the broomstick murders. None of his crimes was he prepared to bring his own ligatures to tie the victims up with. He always used their own clothes, which is exactly what the perpetrators here at the yogurt shop did. They've got coats on. Obviously, they've got weapons in their pockets, got the guns. It would have been very easy to just carry the ligatures. That way, they have those. They can get and control the victims quicker. And so again, I don't believe it was Kenneth McDuff's plan to keep those girls there that night in the yogurt shop. I think his plan was to kidnap the girls in his vehicle, take them back up north, and sexually assault and kill them far away from Austin. And then the 4 girls ended up being in the store, and he had to adapt and change his plan. Third point, the stealing of the money from the register. Both registers were opened through a no sale. The yogurt shop and later at the convenience store that Melissa Northrup was working at. Both of these, the money was stolen out of the register. Even though there was money in both places in each safe, neither safe was touched by the perpetrators. I think that is another pattern that we see. McDuff is there for the easy money, the easy opportunity money. He's not there to stick around and to try to break into a safe. He's there to steal the easy money from the cash register and then move on to his main goal, which, as we know, was the sexual assault and the killing of the females. Fourth point, I think this was, as we've talked about in other podcasts, in the other episodes, this was an experienced criminal or criminals that carried this out. This wasn't their first violent crime. They took those girls to the back. Even if the plan did change, you had 4 girls and you had to control them, which they did. And you had to do ultimately what you came there to do, which was to assault the girls and then murder the girls. But at no point did it seem like the perpetrators panicked, which would show that they had committed violent crimes in their past. In our 5th point, I believe not only were the criminals experienced, but I believe they'd been incarcerated before. What that meant is at some point they had been caught for some mistake they had made at a previous crime. They'd either left evidence or left a witness behind. And we can clearly see here at the yogurt shop that 23 years in prison had taught Kenneth McDuff, after talking to inmates for 23 years, about how to get rid of evidence. And so I believe if you understand and you look at the evidence of how our perpetrators learned from probably other mistakes they had made in past crimes that caused them to be caught, they weren't going to make those same mistakes, which again leads me back to an older person that committed this crime, probably mid-30s, early 40s, because they'd spent a number of years in prison. This is not a young 15 or 16 or 17-year-old kid. This is someone who's probably been incarcerated, been in jail for a number of years, and unfortunately knows how to destroy and get rid of evidence. Those are the 5 points that lead us back to Kenneth, other than, of course, the 6th point. The 6th point being he was psychopathically evil, and obviously that's the biggest point. He was very capable of carrying out this crime. There's no doubt, hopefully, after you've listened to the first 7 episodes, that you can even think that he would not have done this if he would have had the opportunity. He was a cold-blooded killer who was a sexual deviant who would have done this easily if he would have been, or easily if he would have had the opportunity. I want to thank you for watching and listening to episode 7. In episode 8, we will finish up season 1. In that episode, we will see how Kenneth McDuff was finally captured, and we will also see the details, the shocking details of what Kenneth McDuff said the day before he was executed. You'll definitely want to hear that in episode 8. So tune in to episode 8, our final episode in season 1 of Wrong Place, Wrong Crime. Make sure you like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.